Morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Hope everyone's ready to tr trade this morning. I almost said stream today. Ready for stream. I don't think everyone's streaming this morning. Afternoon. Yeah, I gotta get used to saying afternoon and evening as well. Since there's plenty of people watching from all over the world. I can't imagine what it would be like trading like at night or in the evening. Seems like it'd be crazy. I'm just so I've just done so many years trading at the crack of dawn, and that's kind of wow. Oil did do this sell off yesterday. We kind of open charts and see what we're looking at here. Market shot up. Took until the afternoon. You were awake at London Open. Now this. Yeah, that's a lot of trading too. I think I'd lose my mind if I was trading like all day. Especially if I was like streaming trading all day. How am I doing? I'm doing good this morning. Slept pretty good. I haven't really had that much time to work out this week, which has kind of not been ideal. My body's just so used to being active, so if I don't go on a run or go to the gym a few days in a row, I start to feel old real fast. Kind of seeing what things are doing, looking at big picture. Trump announced a peace deal. Yeah, who knows what this was? I mean, like if that was him announcing a peace deal, it doesn't seem that crazy. Because to me, even just price action wise, this jump in oil that we had, it looked like it was going to sell off. Um, Yesterday it had this big dump, and then here it was kind of like when I was watching and trading. It actually made one more step, and then like this is a pretty nice head and shoulders on a 15-minute chart of oil. I mean, giving this is a classic. I would say my A setup in terms of what the pattern looks like in terms of unhealthy move up, big fair value gaps. It takes some time, sets up in head and shoulders, but as soon as it kind of breaks this and gets going, boom, you get that flush. So you're just trying to capture that. Maybe you get up here, that's even better entry. Um, that's what I will really like to trade, and just haven't been getting that many of those, at least while I'm trading. They've definitely been happening. Indicators have been really helpful. Good to hear. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't just have them just to have them or try and sell them. Like, they're literally something that I use in my trading. Like, I think they're just massive quality of life upgrades for the platform. I don't know why, maybe I can get NinjaTrader to buy them from me or something, but I'm surprised they, I mean, technically, I think they own all the rights to everything, so I'd assume they could just make a default one if they wanted and just, you know, steal it from me, basically, which would legally be allowed, which is all that matters for them. That's kind of the cool part about like that, you know, having a platform that allows like you know, everyone to just make stuff up because even just like with video games, like communities always make the coolest stuff. Um, which is just super, super powerful for improving the platform. Morning, everyone. Am I trading or is this education? I would say it's both. I mean, like I'm here looking to execute my strategy. Um, but obviously that doesn't happen every day or every second of the day. And so people got questions. I am happy to answer them. And, you know, I kind of talk through what I'm seeing and emotional side of things if it's kind of your first time. A lot of people find that actually really refreshing, I guess, compared to how other people do things. So that's kind of what it's about. News. Let me look at some news here. I don't think there's really that much news. We have revised UOM consumer sentiment. Actually, there's quite a few um, news releases this morning. I don't think I'm gonna look here at my little cheat sheet. I think revised can be important. I've got it marked down as it could be big news. So we could have actually important news at 10 o'clock today. So that'll be interesting to see. When do I close position? I'm not in one right now, but you'll be able to pretty easily see it on the chart when I am. And I'll walk through everything I'm thinking and doing. So 10 o'clock should be interesting. Also, just thinking about big picture here, since this week has kind of been, we've actually almost given this move back up, which is pretty interesting. You know, we were in this crappy downtrend until I guess Wednesday we had kind of a pop. Thursday we kind of sat, but kind of popped as well overnight or into the close. Um, it'd be interesting to see if we want to push up to test the highs on the S&Ps over the weekend. It is a long weekend. Reminder trading. The markets might be open some on Monday, but I think it's either that it's either they're fully closed or it's like a half day. And I never trade a half day. Or if bonds are open, you know, it's just there's no volume. It just most of the market takes it off anyway. Even if it's like a half day. I would assume because it's a Monday, it's just fully closed. But keeping that in mind, especially with this oil news the last couple days, like the market's been a little more jittery and news orientated the last couple days with oil. It's been a lot spikier this week, especially kind of Thursday and Wednesday. So my kind of thinking is into the long weekend, we might get some movement this morning, but there is also the possibility that it just sits after a little while. So yeah, Memorial Day is Monday. I mean, I think that it's going to be fully closed, and so it's definitely could slow down into the weekend. Nasdaq is about the same in terms of closeness to all-time highs. Um, so you know, I think it just remains to be seen kind of what we do there's not really a good overnight high as we're already making a high here. Maybe pre-market we kind of sell off a little bit and we test or something. But this is definitely kind of pushing the upper end of this. I think on the ES here we have kind of this upwards range. NASDAQ doesn't kind of has that too. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. And then oil here is just, I don't see anything crazy. It's kind of looking like it's trying to break this, but it could also just come down here and tap this trend line somewhere. Oil on a daily time frame. It pretty much perfectly, which is kind of crazy, is hit this trend line from these two highs. Sold off. So I mean, it could come up here and just test this. Granted, this trend line could be drawn a little tighter too. But it's just, my kind of thought is it's just been in this wedge recently. Daily chart on the S&P. We're just kind of giving this pullback back up, which is, just pretty bullish. NASDAQ is, I would assume, is pretty much the same. Doesn't mean if we make a new high here that we're just going to keep chugging. It could be that we slow down, we do continue higher, or it kind of, does this for a while, or it fakes out and pushes lower. I think it just remains to be seen kind of how this test happens. But I think if the Middle East news lessens more and more in terms of, making an agreement or something, and oil does kind of break this, oil could easily start pushing this low and still stay in this range. But that would give a lot of pressure to the upside on the major markets. They're already super strong. I mean, earnings potential and everything, earnings released from a lot of these companies is still really good. And so the only thing kind of holding things back from, I think, just continuing to the upside are just the uncertainty of oil, but that seems to be getting less and less. So we'll kind of see what happens there. I will be back Tuesday. I'll be back streaming next week. Pretty much doing it, every day of the week. I do have a video that talks about NinjaTrader and how I set it up. I also have one that kind of walks through my indicators. Let me go. No, talking too fast for my mouth. Let me know if you guys have any questions. While we kind of wait for a couple minutes here for the market to get going. You do need to subscribe to ask a question. And if you're, a regular, feel free to hit that like, and we'll see. Try and push the stream a little today. Do I think this week was the worst week of this month? That's a good question. Well, we still technically have next week, so I could blow my account up next week. For me, I would say this week was the worst week. I think this week was the most challenging. Like last week had some volatility that was tricky, but this week was just, I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were insanely tricky. Thursday, then it shifted to where news related spikes started to come in. So that shift midweek from already a complicated market to adding another complex variable in made it very tricky for me. I mean, I'm pretty much break even for the week. I've only taken one trade and it ended up being a loss, but it was only like third size. It's been very, very frustrating and hard to trade this week. Did I take that long earlier this week? I don't even remember. May 19th, that was this week. Okay, yeah, I took a trade on Tuesday as well. I took a long down here, but it ended up spiking me out at break even before ripping higher. So if that trade worked out, obviously my P&L would look a little different this week, but that one got knocked out at break even as well. Even with me giving it, I don't know, I think I was in that trade for like at least to 60 minutes, and I gave it a really wide stop, and it still knocked me out. And to me, that just showed that the markets, even if I'm right on the direction majority of the time, which has been happening, actually executing, managing, and making money in off of the moves has been really tricky. And so that's why I've been going smaller size. I've been trying to think about how can I adjust to things in a profitable way. You don't want to just start going crazy, changing what you're doing. You want to be slow and methodical and conscious about what you're doing. I don't want to go into a day and change what I'm doing mid-session. That is a recipe for disaster. Because then it's just, to me, changing something mid-session is an emotional decision, which is not something you want to do. So I mean, I think, yeah, I think to cap it off, I think this week has been the worst week. Um, I think to cap that off too, I think for the month, my win rate has probably since the loss on yesterday, my win rate's gone down to like 50%, but my directional choice is like an 80%. So every time I look for, okay, it's going to bottom here and reverse, I'm right almost every time, but I'm not able to make money from it, which is almost more frustrating than just being flat out wrong. You gotta dodge patterns now. You gotta dodge tweets. Yeah, yesterday and the day before there were some clearly some tweets going off. I changed the way you trade and now you earn money every month. Hey, you know what? I'd rather you earn money than me, in the sense of, um, as long as I'm making you guys better, that's a win for me. Do I have a video talking about journaling? Not really. Um, but for journaling, I mean, it's very important to, there's the big journaling platforms that are like a monthly subscription that just allow you to import everything and make it easy, which is nice. Obviously, those can cost like $30 a month. Um, Otherwise, I think it's fine. Literally, just use a Google Excel sheet and put columns in. And the main things you want to track is like why you got in terms of um, kind of the patterns you saw, and then also, the outcome, obviously, and then the emotions that you were feeling. Because the emotional side, you need to start keeping track of and figuring out, okay, which emotions are negatively impacting my trading. And even if you don't take a trade, if a big thing for you is emotionally skipping a trade, chickening out, you need to keep track of that too, because that's a trade that theoretically your strategy said you should have got in, and you didn't. Morning, everyone. Do I use replay to test new ideas? Not really, because I think the new things I'm testing are just so minor. And I feel like I know my trades and know the patterns enough that I can make those changes. Do I think that the divergence is gonna do much this morning? Not really. To me, this isn't too much of a divergence. Definitely like the ES, the divergence is that it's higher than the Nasdaq, but that's pretty common. That they're not perfectly aligned. And to me, that's not too much of a divergence, in terms of, what, they're still correlated, they're still moving the same direction. But you're going to have times where just one's stronger than the other. And to me, that doesn't make a huge impact on the potential direction and trade and reading of what's going on. But obviously, like, once the market opens, that could change, and I'll see what things are doing at that point. Closing the gap between blown accounts and payouts. Awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean it's always just one of those things of like it's just a slow process. You know, you gotta it's hard because it's so easy to want that quick gratification or you know, it's easy to get sucked into how this week was or last week was or the last couple weeks. And it's like this is a long-term game. You want to be thinking about it in terms of months. And it's like for me, it's like okay, the last couple weeks have been rough, but like I've made really good changes and learned a lot to where I think I can adjust things in a meaningful way. And I'm still, you know, essentially still getting better every single day. Um, and that's the hard part about trading is the growth isn't tangible all the time because it's so easy to just get sucked into looking at the P&L. And that's the mindset that's just never going to make you profitable. Please stream with normal with horizontal. If you're seeing the vertical only stream, you're on the secondary stream. You need to go to my YouTube homepage, and then you will see the full stream. So if you pull up my YouTube channel, you'll see there's two, and so you just need to click on the main one. Anyone new while we're on this here, if you scroll down and you want to learn more about my strategy, this video right here goes into, oh my God, I'm kind of forgetting. This one goes into like supply and demand and like how I draw my levels. This one goes into how futures work if you're new to futures. And this one kind of just does a rough overview of the strategy and what I'm looking for. So definitely go check those out if you want more details. In terms of levels, since we're kind of just getting going here and almost to the open, I'll kind of go through what I'm seeing today. As always, appreciate everyone being here. Happy Friday. We got one more day. I know I need I'm actually glad there's a good long weekend because this week was really tough in terms of the market, but also just streaming. And so to me, I'm pretty mentally exhausted. And so having a nice 3-day weekend to go reset is going to actually be really nice. And I'll be able to kind of get out of the house and stuff like that. So that'll be really important because, you know, next week, got to go at it again. This market is not, I can't imagine this market's going to change anytime soon. So for the SP 500 futures on a 15-minute chart, knocked my mouse there. We're kind of just in this big round bottom right now. To me, it looks like we're going to eventually retest these highs. I don't know if that's going to be today, knowing that it's a 3-day weekend. Monday is closed. You know, we might chop around here and then maybe that happens Monday or later today. I don't know. But, you know, based on these last couple days, I'm going to assume that we could have some volatile moves up. But this uptrend line we are running into. And then on the NASDAQ, it's pretty similar. NASDAQ hasn't actually made a new high yet on the day. But I'm kind of just looking at these levels. Major high. This is kind of a decent support if we came down and test. I think I would look for a long down here. Just because this major uptrend is in play. I think big picture we're in an uptrend. I think it's more likely that we do try and retest the highs than pop up here and sell off. Of course, anything could happen. Oil here on a daily chart is just in this wedge still. It perfectly touched this line here. I think it remains to be seen if oil just holds this and stays choppy. But I could also see a world, especially because the news yesterday was there was some Middle East news about making a deal. I didn't really look into it, but that's what some people were saying. And if that happens, you know, I could see us break this and slowly work our way down. I think that makes more sense if things are cooling off in the Middle East. Just because we sell off down here doesn't mean I don't think we could. I think we'll still stay in this upward range for a long time until something major changes. And oil has been kind of news driven the last couple of days, so We'll see what happens there. It is kind of touching this trend line, so we could get a little bounce here in the short term, though. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on a 15-minute. In terms of a 5-minute, I need my trend line I'm thinking here is not hasn't transferred over to alt charts. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Kind of looking to just see how this pops up here. We hit that pretty perfectly. I could see this. This is definitely a move that we could give back up. We've kind of got maybe a head and shoulders forming right here. There is kind of a pre-market news spike that happened in both markets, which is kind of interesting. The NASDAQ to me is just in the middle of this range, which isn't great. So I think at the moment I'll be open to potentially looking for something. But I think ideally we kind of retest this. But we could also come up here, test this shoulder. I mean, on a big picture, this was the left shoulder, which is this guy down here. But we'll see kind of what that looks like. Because I definitely want to, other than yesterday, every day that the market's open this week, that things just have been crazy initially. And so definitely want to give the market the opening kind of whip. Can you put a normal TP and stop loss on TradingView with a Trade08 account? Honestly, I don't use TradingView, so I can't really tell you. Sorry. I really only have traded on NinjaTrader for the last like 5 years. It's the platform that I've used the most, and it just kind of works really well for what I do. Yeah, so for news, we do have news at 10 a.m. here. We got a decent amount, and it's consumer sentiment and inflation expectations, which I think could be decent impact right now. So definitely, that's what this red line right here is. So definitely that could hit the market. Why not show it right now? Because the market's not open. I want to give. There's total potential for this to me on the NASDAQ. This looks bullish, right? And so on the ES, I'm starting to see, if I pull over my checklist, I'm starting to see kind of the trend break, and we're at a reversal zone. But there's the ES and the NASDAQ aren't necessarily correlated. And so I kind of want to wait to see the market open at least. I'm not going to just jump in at the open here, especially with how the open has been this week. Sometimes it could make sense, but with the way the market has been this week, it just seems it's pretty gambly to do that right now. What's the best platform to use? If you're looking for futures, even in Australia, I think NinjaTrader is available in Australia. And so there's a link in the description of the live stream if you want to check that out. I've used it for like over 5 years at this point, 6 years. Okay, market's open now. See what happens here. TradingView is way too complicated. I never really liked TradingView either. I don't know why. I mean, tons of people use it. Part of me thinks just because it's ease of access, that people use it. But you know, again, it's like it doesn't matter where you trade. It's all personal preference. As long as it works for you, that's all that matters. Nasdaq's spiking up here. Nasdaq could catch up on the open. How is trading view complicated? It might not be. It's more just for me personally. Learning a new platform is always frustrating, you know, because everything's slightly done slightly differently and in a different spot. My dog's right next to me this morning, laying on the floor. I'm trying not to step on her because she's partially where I want to stand. Just kind of seeing what this opening spike does, because I'm definitely into shorting up here if it kind of sets up. But again, like the market's been crazy this week. If it just spikes up and then spikes lower without anything, um, you know, I'm just not, that's not a trade. I would prefer to be aggressive on the long side because I think the overall trend is up. And so shorting at the highs, I think, is less profitable right now because to me, the more bigger picture trend, looking like at a 15-minute chart, is more to the upside. We are hitting this trend line here that could push us lower. And definitely, like, there's still moves down that are very tradable in this market. But we could just make a run at the highs with how close we are. Sometimes it's like gravity. Once it kind of gets there, it's almost just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I kicked my dog slightly. Sorry. Cat is on your lap. Yeah, I don't think I could do a cat on the keyboard. And can you imagine your cat accidentally enters you in a trade or closes you out? The market is closed on Monday for Memorial Day. So I will be streaming Tuesday. I don't think anyone wants to just watch me look at nothing on Monday. I don't want to. I gotta go touch some grass anyway. Just kind of waiting for that opening 10 minutes that I like to see, just to kind of see what the market's doing this morning. Um, you know, if we're just gonna have a, how big are we actually? How big is this move? Just to kind of see, 100-point move here. We just have a 100-point whip in the Nasdaq, and the ES is, that's still like almost 20 points, 15, 20 points. Because it could just pop up here and it could just pull back right to here and then shoot up. The ES, this is kind of a nice double top on the ES. I think if that starts to maybe set up with a lower high, I'll definitely think about it to the downside. Take up golf. I've thought about it maybe when I can't be more active. Because I do a ton of like rock climbing and mountaineering and trail running. Um, and so golf kind of doesn't fit that bucket for me yet. Maybe once my knees give out, I'll look at something a little less crazy. Looking at sizing this morning. If I was going to maybe get in up here, because we are at the upper end of this trend line. To me, big picture, that's a good reversal zone. We double top here, and I think what I need to see, though, is I need to see it do kind of a lower high like this. Because, you know, other times I would be more aggressive about getting in. But to me right now, this, again, I think that my intuition and bias is to the long side. I think this is more likely to continue higher. And so I don't want to write a short off the table, but I want to be a little more cautious with it because of that. I would rather this sells off, I miss it, and then look for a long down here. I don't want to miss it, but you know, if it just happens out of nowhere and it doesn't set up the way I want it to for a trade, I'm okay with that. Do I have a video showing how to enter actual trade amounts? Not really. At least on NinjaTrader, it's kind of like, because a lot of it depends on your sizing. And for me on NinjaTrader, I just have this tool that just tells me what to size. You know, if my target here for a half size trade is $750 and I was going to short, if the market came here and I put my stop up here, this tool just allows me to, it automatically tells me how many contracts to trade. Otherwise, you got to have like a little sticky note or some kind of other calculator that does it for you. And then that the sizing just depends on, you know, how much you're wanting to risk per trade. If you're trading the micros or the minis. In terms of it, if this just breaks higher, I need to actually go to a 15-minute chart because the previous high is just so far back. I mean, this has a long ways to get up to kind of this reversal zone. Now, the NASDAQ is actually a lot closer. So the NASDAQ could actually top out and sell off, where the ES maybe makes like it here and then sells off because the NASDAQ has hit there already and decides to pull the market down. But in big picture too, on the NASDAQ, we're just testing this trend line. And the ES, I mean, the ES could totally break it and wick back down. We've got kind of two pushes up. That's kind of a common thing. If it's going to reverse, two pushes up and it kind of starts to slow. The charting I'm showing, this is NinjaTrader, the platform I'm using. So I only trade reversals. I usually just look for reversals. Sometimes a reversal can be still a continuation. Like if it pulled back here and made a clean like bottoming pattern, to me that's still reversal looking to go upwards, but that could also be considered a continuation. Keeping in mind too, yesterday was crappy to trade, so that I wonder if that'll go into today too. But clearly we have movement this morning versus yesterday. The first, I think, 30 minutes it just sat there. It eventually had a little reversal, but Yeah, I think right now it's just seeing what this move does, seeing how it plays out, because the Nasdaq looks like it's shooting for all-time highs. You know, there's some kind of tight uptrend here. Nasdaq and ES, I would definitely say are correlated this morning. Oil is kind of making a little bottom here in the short term on a 15-minute. They might just give this little unhealthy move back up here and then continue its downtrend. I'm not too concerned about oil in terms of reading into it too much unless there starts to be pretty big news. In terms of other markets and other indicators, I don't really look at them. I literally just look at price action. And I only trade the S&P 500 futures and the Nasdaq. Keeps it super simple, and I pretty much get what I need from just looking at the candlesticks. The calculator, if you want the NinjaTrader calculator, it's in the description below. It does cost money. NinjaTrader might set up something to where it's in their platform, and then it might be free, but until then, kind of a little spike here. Nasdaq, not really that much of a pullback. Or actually, this is the ES. Trying to look at this on a 5-minute. So we'll kind of see what goes on there. News. That's the hard part. If this spike is just over news, there's just, I mean, news is impossible to trade when it just spikes a crazy amount. And oil, especially since the fact that, thinking about it, if we just made a news deal, an agreement, I don't know, I don't know about you guys, but recent, like the whole time with this Middle East, like there's just been the back and forth has just been, oh, there's a deal. Oh, it's off. So I mean, like if the market sells off, if oil sells off here because a deal has been made, I think it's highly likely that it gets reversed just with the fact that this administration has been so back and forth. It's like, and so the market might take that into consideration in reverse, or just not move up that much. And that's why I think to some extent the correlation or inverse correlation between oil and the market has got a little less, and the market has overall just moved up because it's accepted and realized, okay, this back and forth is just, it's not worth reacting to too much. Obviously there's micro moves on a daily chart, on a 1 minute chart that we can see, but big picture, the market's just cruising up. And you'd think with high oil prices and everything, that wouldn't be the case necessarily, but I think there's just enough macroeconomics that is just pushing things up, despite oil being a little funky. And also keep in mind that we do have pretty big news coming out at 10 o'clock. It's consumer sentiment and inflation expectations. There's a couple other smaller ones in here, but the main one is this consumer sentiment and inflation expectation. So that could be, we could slow down into 10 o'clock into that news release and then go from there. Big spike lower here on the NASDAQ, but I don't really see much to do, honestly. I could see it maybe setting up a little something here. But to me, the ES is actually looking bullish. Like this is a nice, actually looking here on the NASDAQ, this is a nice little push higher and a flush in terms of a topping pattern. But the ES looks like it's about to make a new high. And so if the ES is just going to continue to chug higher, it's not at a spot where I'm looking for a reversal. The NASDAQ is kind of, I mean, it's big picture looking at this. It's definitely like tested this upper area. You know, if I pull this down a little bit, it's definitely tested this upper range. But the ES to me here looks bullish. And so that's where, to me right now, there's actually kind of a lack of correlation. And the sizing is just so big too. Even if I wanted to half size and enter in here, it would still be like full size to put my stop all the way up here. And it's like maybe I could put an enter here, but the ES might be double topping. Nice sell off on the ES too. In terms of a 50% pullback at this spot, NASDAQ's pretty much right at it. Just trying to see here if this is something I think I can enter in on or not. Because the ES is definitely showing weakness now. Like this is a nice double top. But the problem is, like, in terms of an unhealthy move, there isn't really, to me, there isn't a void in the market of like a nice move up and then room to profit. Like, it's not going to be easy on the downside, it looks like. There's just all this in here. And the NASDAQ, you know, it might sell off a little bit, but just down to here and recover. Because, again, the bigger picture kind of seems to the upside. Kind of like I said earlier, if the short doesn't set up, but it does happen, I'm okay missing it because I think the shorts right now are a little trickier. Because to me, the signal, excuse me, I think the signal is more the NASDAQ, I think, is kind of less likely to have a good signal here. Um, it's just hard being a little conflicted on this spot, knowing that, oh, if it sells off and I miss the swing, it's going to not feel great. Just with, just feeling a little bit of FOMO, just with the fact that I see the potential, but it's just not setting up that great. I don't think the risk reward is really there. I don't think really the potential to have a move down to here is great. We're coming into the news. I think it's just better to kind of sit this out. And if it sells off, great. I will look for a long at the lows. This is kind of something I was thinking about, or middle of the week too, is trying to trust these topping reads a little bit more, and being okay with it doesn't have to be perfect here. And it doesn't have to bottom or look exactly perfect, and just the math will play out, because usually a lot of the times these topping signals are pretty correct. But just the last 2 days have just been a little too funky to where I don't think the being aggressive actually was worthwhile. It's a great market for scalping, yeah. But for looking for a full swing like this, it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards today. Just so much it's an art form of picking your spots. And in this market, it's there's just so much unsureness. So I think at this point, just gonna wait to see what the news does in 6 minutes. I'll look at some questions here. Make sure to subscribe if you want to ask questions, and like the stream if you appreciate listening to me talk for hours. I do stream every day. I won't be streaming Monday because it's a holiday, but I'll be back Tuesday next week. Rubio speaking. There is, I don't know if that's looking at the news, I'm assuming you're meaning, no, there is an FOMC member speaking, but a lot of time when people speak, nothing actually happens. But you never know. It depends what they say. But generally, I think there's so much news you can pay attention to. Sometimes it's almost just better to only pay attention to when Trump is speaking. How long have I been using this reversal strategy? I don't know, years at this point. Um Still in this little downtrend here. I think we start to chop here. The ES looks like it could just start to chop. I do see a topping pattern. There is kind of a topping pattern here, but I think with this news looming, it's just the smarter decision is to just wait for it. Been scalping my setups with success this week. Awesome. Love to hear it. How long did it take for me to be consistent trading? I think it took like 4 years maybe. But I feel like a lot of it was because I got in what I call like the learning loop where you're just jumping from strategy to strategy thinking I'm not profitable because the strategy I'm trading isn't profitable. You're essentially trying to react to everything the market's doing, trying to add more things. And that doesn't actually work with trading. You don't need the perfect make of indicators. You just need a strategy that works, and then you jump out of that. You break that loop after realizing, okay, it's not the strategy that's wrong, it's me, and you jump into what I call the self-sabotage loop, where you mentally you make decisions that negatively affect your trading. So like if I FOMO'd in here and it ends up just chopping and not working out and I lost, well, to me, I jumped in there because of FOMO, versus my strategy actually telling me to. And so that's the hardest part about trading is that stops most people from becoming consistent is being able to consistently every single day make the correct decision and not allow your emotions to control you, because trading is essentially a decision making game. It's a mental performance game. You have to be able to do the correct decision day in and day out, no matter what your emotions want you to do. And so it's mainly about not letting your emotions control your actions. It's not about like just not feeling them. It's about just accepting them and being okay. It's fine that I'm nervous because the outcome's always unknown. Um, but I'm still going to enter in here because my strategy tells me to. Saw my videos about futures trading. Am I not trading futures anymore? I am. These are futures. I'm trading the S&P 500 futures and the Nasdaq futures. We got 1 minute before news here. I'll look at a couple more questions. Again, apologies if I miss them. Um, as always, I appreciate the kind words, even if I don't necessarily acknowledge them. No trade today, maybe. We'll see. I mean, I think we could. There's more volatility today than yesterday. But I definitely think as the day goes on, it's going to dry up. But that doesn't mean in the next 30 to 60 minutes that we'll get something. Could you share with us your strategy? If you go to my YouTube channel, I have a ton of tutorials and videos on strategy, how futures work, pretty much everything I do. So if you got time after this or this weekend, I highly recommend to go look at those. We're spiking into this news, which is interesting. Means it's probably going to be kind of crazy. We'll see what this does here. That was interesting seeing the last couple seconds of that candlestick spike. And I only trade the S&P 500 futures and the Nasdaq. I don't trade gold. I don't trade oil. I definitely look at oil. Oil right now is just kind of doing a reversal here. I definitely see the big picture kind of head and shoulders here on the ES. I don't know. I can't enter in on this kind of huge candlestick though. I don't want that. I don't want to FOMO off of that. It's a 12-point candle. You know, jumping in here would be a little crazy. I could see if it pulls back to about kind of the 50% level. Does that and breaks lower, I could maybe see looking for a minor move again with the idea that, okay, I think this big picture play is happening. The NASDAQ looks very similar, I think. Big picture, it definitely looks like it could be kind of topping. But again, the overall feel of today is kind of just choppy. I would say they are kind of correlated again. And if this just rips from this huge candle, that's okay. I don't want to. This is not a market to be aggressive with trades right now. I think it's more likely to get baited into something. Do I use regular hours or electronic hours? I don't really know what that is, to be honest. But I just trade, you know, I just trade the first 60 minutes of the New York Open, and my hours on here, at least on the timeline of my chart, is EST. Can I explain why I didn't enter? Even though I'm seeing this like topping potential, part of me also is trying not to read into that too much. With the fact of just looking at this movement here, is it so back and forth? It's just like we're just in this very crappy, choppy range. And to me, with this big candlestick in that type of market, so often a huge move like this will get snapped back. I almost would say the majority of the time, especially off of a news release like that. I think it's over time, this is so unlikely to just break this low and continue lower without a pullback. And, you know, we might do that. We might bottom here and reverse up. But to me, it's just jumping in on a huge candlestick like that is FOMO. I have seen time and time again, the majority of the time, that is not a spot you want to enter in on. You know, and again, it's not about thinking about how it happens this exact time. It's about thinking about how does it happen over time. You know, what's the average outcome of doing something based on, you know, what I'm seeing. And, you know, I would be more interested if it did a pullback and got in. But like this is just huge wicky candlesticks. To me, it looks like it's just going to retest this open and pop up. The NASDAQ is kind of just retesting this like middle of the range support level. And it's hard not to read into some of that stuff. Regular versus electronic is NinjaTrader settings. Yeah, I don't even know. If I'm just on the default then. And also knowing that we're going into a 3-day weekend, I think makes it more likely to be not great. It's hard though when most of the week hasn't been good for trading, and so you know it makes you start to feel like you should be doing something, you know. But if I try and look at this unbiasedly, this is just not that great. You know, again, like big picture, I do see the potential for this to sell off, and give this up. But in terms of actually entering in and where I would put my stop loss and how I would actually manage it, it just doesn't feel executable in terms of I would want my stop loss all the way above this candlestick. And I think jumping in here, just based on the market, I don't think the risk reward is great. And the hard part is because a lot of this week, I feel like a lot of those spots I've seen potential have actually still worked out. But the market it's just so funky to read right this week. And so I would rather just kind of see how things play out and maybe next week, if we're still in the same boat, be a little bit more aggressive and be like, okay, well, the reads were working out. I just need to accept that and jump in when I see those opportunities. It just feels like for people trading a while, it just feels so trappy right now. Even though on the Nasdaq, like I was talking earlier, this to me was kind of a topping pattern. Had a big spike up here, rejection, big sell off, a little bit of a pullback. Like this was a little head and shoulders at pretty much testing the all-time highs. But at this point, the ES really looked really strong. Things just were kind of still all over the place. And so it's hindsight, it looks like, oh, should have done it. But in the moment, it just seemed so flip-floppy and not really a great spot. Am I on a live account? Yes, I don't trade prop firms. I just trade my own money. On NinjaTrader, my account number is mostly hidden because probably just giving that out isn't a smart thing to do. But it would start with a D for demo trading, I think, or an S for sim trading right there. How do I make money if I don't trade? Well, it's just, it's not about every day. The idea is my size is big enough that, um, my full size is like $1,500. And so a 3x trade on $1,500 is like 5K. I haven't taken one of those in weeks, which is frustrating, but that's just how the market's been. The market to me right now is for me, has just been I've been playing defense. There's times where you want to be full size and really pushing things and you make a lot of money, and other times where it's like, it's a lot easier to just blow your account up, and that's just like how the ups and downs of trading is. How are you supposed to learn from TradingView with the 10-minute delay? You just have to pay for data. I mean, every platform makes you pay for real-time data. Down 1,000 on live. I mean, it sucks. I mean, that's the hard part is like, for me, when I was learning, weeks like this, I would be down money. I would be down a lot of money because I would be trying to make things work. And in hindsight, there's a lot of spots that maybe would have, but in the reality of like trading it and like having that decision fatigue not build up because you're over trading, it's really hard to not have that actually damage your trading. And then, so like on a week like this, I would probably be down, let's say 3 or 4 full size trades, right? And then you're down a lot of money from a crappy week. And then the next, when the market shifts and some good trades come, then now you're just having to make your money back up. Versus now, for me, to me, being flat on a crazy hard week like this, that's a win. Because once the market shifts and I can read things better, and the trading and executing is a little easier, I'll be up money, versus trying to recover. And some people are making money right now, and that's awesome. It's everyone is slightly different when it comes to trading and what they're comfortable with and how they trade. It's such a personal journey. But for me, I average like 1 to 3 trades a week. I think this week I've taken two. My average has definitely been higher actually because of the volatility and how the market's been, and I think I have been trying to get a little more aggressive. So my trade average that I take will go up. But it's still, I'm not, there's some people that are taking 10, 30 trades a day, and that's just not how I trade. At the end of the day, it's, are you making money or not? Doesn't matter how you do it. You take one trade a year and that works, great. Down almost 2K on a live account. I mean, that's hard. Anyone who's like down this week, um, definitely be careful with today. Today just seems, the last 2 days have been pretty crappy. I mean, just this weekend, just it's probably good that it's a long weekend. I mean, just try and reset, try and just take a break, because you want to reset that mental fatigue and that frustration. But also then kind of reflect and see where you can improve, of course. Took a trade and made money today. I mean, that's great too. I think the harder part about trading is knowing when not to trade. It's so easy to know or to put a trade on. It's very, the skill is learning to hold back. I definitely have times where I'm a little trigger shy when I should be more aggressive. I don't think that's today, but yeah, I would say on Wednesday there was a spot where I should have actually jumped in and I didn't. But that's my psychological hurdle to get better at. You can't be perfect every day. We're human. We're not robots. But to me, also, there'll be this, thinking about this trade here of should I have gotten short, and trying to get better with just trusting my read because my reads have been really pretty spot on of picking a reversal top and just not. I think the hard part in this market is knowing how to get in and trade it, especially because the sizing is so hard. So right now, I feel like I'm trying to adjust how I'm jumping in because today, like, I mean, I pretty much saw this. I just didn't jump in because I was conflicted and it didn't feel that good. Um, and just I think getting more comfortable with it doesn't need to be perfect. Um, and kind of yesterday had a similar setup where it wasn't perfect, but I could, a topping signal did kind of happen and a little trade did play out. And just, trusting the risk reward a little bit. And it's harder for me to do that on, I would say, B, like kind of B setup kind of trades versus, um, the A plus setup trades. Like those are money to me. little head and shoulders here on the NASDAQ, but to me, it's still in this downtrend. The ES here is kind of middle of the range. Could be doing a little double bottom, head and shoulders. To me, there's not as much of a topping pattern like this one. Like this one had a nice flush up versus this one just kind of bottomed. And it's not at an extreme. Like on a 5-minute on the S&Ps, like we're just kind of in the middle of the range. We are bouncing off of this. The NASDAQ is kind of bouncing off this low here. I definitely don't want to discount this out in terms of a potential trend reversal. But on a 5-minute, it looks like there's still room to the downside. But if we're in an uptrend, you know, like this, it makes sense to this be a pullback. Actually, if I look at a 50% of this move, or definitely kind of past it. My bottom reversal zones have been fire. I mean, usually my zones are pretty good. I mean, that's the whole concept of just trying to watch the extremes because it is a higher area of chance that it reverses there. I think for me, it's just, you know, being a little more better with my entries and actually taking them. And also on the flip side, not getting too frustrated of not doing it, you know. I don't want to get frustrated that I'm not trading as well as I would like to be and have that derail me and then me start to, you know, just start doing stupid stuff. You know, it's a fine line between things. Oil's kind of hit this downtrend line here. And that's the hard part about like trying to adjust how you're doing things. Is you want to be slow about it because there's you start to see the opportunity and the reason to do it. But you're, you know, because it's new and outside of your comfort zone, it's gonna be there's gonna be some friction there. How and when to withdraw from your bank without having margin issues? I mean, I would say the biggest thing is just leave enough to be having. I don't have a great formula for it because I usually just leave plenty. I would just say, you know, you want to be able to handle a downswing of like at least I would say 5 losses in a row, and then understand, okay, if I'm on that 5th loss or something, or that 5th or that 6th trade after that, what does, you know, how much margin do I need to be able to enter in a trade? Um, so definitely like, you know, I don't like having to worry about something like that while I'm trading. You don't want to have that on the top of your mind. So definitely like if leave more than you think, I would say. What's the realistic weekly profit target for trading for the first time of a live account? I would not even put that in your mind because it is so dependent on the market you're trading. It's you don't want to have a target or a goal with how much money of like, oh, in 3 months I want to be making this, or I want to make this much a day. Because that's not how trading is. You know, sometimes the market is good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you're not trading well. And if you put a target, I've done this before where I say, oh, as soon as my account hits like $10,000, I want to size up. And so when it came down to me getting close to that number, and I was at like, I don't know, 9,000 or 9,500 of account size, my thought was like, okay, all I need is one trade and I get a size up. And so that trade had to win because then I had to, because I put that target on and that pressure of that target on me, of wanting to have that trade win. And so it focused me more on the outcome versus the process of you just come in every day, you execute your strategy to the best of your ability. And the numbers are going to play out over time. And however those numbers play out, you adjust based on that. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting week for me to look at and review and think about entries and trying to be less needing things to be perfect. Still in this downtrend. I mean, this looks like it's just gonna push the lows here. Definitely gonna put this one in my journal. I entered in 2 trades this week. There's a couple of spots where I think I should have entered in more. This week has been really tricky for me though. And I think next week I will be trying to adjust a little bit more. In terms of these signals that I'm seeing are good topping patterns, and they're just a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I need to just go with the read. How do I deal with losses after failing to follow my rules? That you were doing well, then over trade, over leverage, emotionally blowing half your account. That is a classic roller coaster. I mean, the biggest thing is like you got to reset. Like, because I'm just looking at this candlestick that's forming. Definitely could be a nice rejection bottoming candle. The first thing always is reset and stop trading for a while until you're a lot more reset, because you don't want to be trading when you're just so emotionally frustrated and just not following your rules. And then after that, kind of lost my train of thought on that. You want to, if you've lost confidence in your trading, you need to either downsize or go back to demo trading, because demo trading, you don't have that emotional side of things. And so you can really just focus on the strategy and you can build the confidence in the strategy. And so if you're, live trading, you lost money and you've lost that confidence because you just went on a loss streak. You gotta, I for a while, I went through that cycle of I'd get confident in my strategy on live or on a demo, because demo trading is a lot easier. There's not that emotions. And then I would blow up my account on live or go on a loss streak, lose that confidence, and then I'd go rebuild it on a demo. And so I think that's just part of the process of getting confident in your strategy, because that, to me, that confidence helps the logical side of my brain of being like, okay, I know the strategy works. I just have to commit to it. And then slowly over time, realizing that and working on those emotions. Definitely a nice rejection candle here. I'm not just going to, I'm thinking about how this set up on the flip side, and how I like these signals is I like these signals as, okay, this is probably the bottom if it's going to bottom. But I don't just want to blindly buy this V bottom here. I do want to see it kind of slow down a little bit. Maybe test this. And also keep in mind that this is a later reversal in the day. It might not work out and it might be a little slower. Generally, the first reversal of the day is the best one. I mentioned demo trading. Do I mean backtesting? I mean simulated trading, like trading with fake money. Got, demo trading, simulated trading, fake money account trading. I don't want to just jump in on this micro pullback here. Because I also don't want to just FOMO into something now that's like, oh, I'm annoyed that I didn't take this short, right? The NASDAQ to me still probably needs to test this downtrend and like start to set up a shoulder here. What platform is this? This is called NinjaTrader. Is the link for it in the description? Yeah, paper trading is another name. There's so many names, so apologies for that. Just not real money. Now, I did like, when we're looking at the big picture, I do like a long more than a short. We're just coming to test this basically on the NASDAQ, the ES kind of too. I definitely like this as the bottom signal, but I don't want to jump in yet. To me, that feels like I'm jumping in too early. Even up here, right? Like this, I like this topping signal, but I need to see a little bit of a pullback of some kind. This little consolidation, and then I can start to enter. But if it's just going to do this, I'll just be done for the day. Just reset, knowing that it's just been, kind of a frustrating week. You close half a position on NinjaTrader. Yeah, you can scale out. I have a NinjaTrader tutorial video that'll kind of walk through that. The major trend bias is still good. This is tricky because this is just a V bottom right now. I want to get in on this long. The ES is not as far, is not as like the Nasdaq's already ripped up pretty far. The ES is a little better. Just looking at a 5 minute here. I mean, the Nasdaq's bottomed at this support level. I guess the one question is there, could we be going into this? It's only just starting. Not really enough evidence for that. And if I do jump into here, I'm just gonna do small size, just because it's a later in the day reversal. It's the second reversal, so it's not as strong. It's Friday. I definitely have underlying kind of frustration, but I don't want to. I'm not overly frustrated to where I can't. I'm being stupid. But just knowing that that's there, I just want to be a little smart with the risk management. I'd like to see it do a little bit of like something here versus just do this. Granted, I have been thinking about actually scaling in. And so I think seeing this maybe start to do a little chop here, I could enter in kind of a third size. And then if it does a little flush here and breaks, I could enter in another third size. That's how I have been starting to want to do these things a little bit to like, because to me, this is an aggressive entry. It's not like perfect, but I see the signal here, and my stop's in a good spot. And so to me, like I want to be a little more aggressive with those spots and knowing that, okay, I can scale in. And I'm actually going to do that here with one contract. The idea that I like this bottoming pattern. To me, the uncomfortable part about this is this feels a little bit like chasing. But if it pulls back and sets up really well for another push higher, and this actually sets up, I'll size in more, make more money on the move up. And if it just rips, I only lose half size. I want to really start trying to be okay with things not setting up perfectly. But when I see kind of the major, bigger picture bottoming signal, that's what I jump in on. Like up here, that's what I should have been doing up here. And could be a case saying that I'm FOMOing in doing it down here, but to me, this was actually a good signal. And seeing it kind of slow here a little bit at this area. I totally think we could have a pullback here, and if it pulls back and I think makes a higher low that looks solid for a clean head and shoulders, I'll add on. And if it just starts to be choppy, I'll just kind of be done. NASDAQ actually broke this downtrend and made a new swing high too. So even if it loses, I'm okay with that. Like I want to just get more comfortable with entering in when things are not as picture perfect for me, but I've seen that more major signal that I want to see. You would have waited for a pullback. That to me, yeah, that's what I would have preferred to do and what I normally would do. Um, and if it does do a pullback, I think I will add on. And so I'm almost using this trade as just me getting used to doing something like that out of my comfort zone versus being like, oh, this is the most perfect entry. Because that's what I want to start doing with my trading. Because just with the last month, looking at the data of that has been very profitable. And I just haven't been executing on it. And so that's just it's hard to do that and adjust like that. But that's just, that's the process of getting better at trading. Is slowly making those adjustments and improvements, and knowing that it's not going to just be easy or work out right away, right? Of course, I would love if this trade worked out. And I think on the scaling inside of things, of well, if it just shoots up here, I still capture it. It's smaller size, but I still capture some of the move. And then if it does a kind of a pullback that makes sense to jump in, I'm still able to kind of increase the size to something a little more substantial. But at this point, like this to me is already pretty far in terms of entering from the low. So I think it'd have to pull back pretty far to make sense entering it again. But we'll see. We'll just see how it plays out. But that's adding to a losing position. Not necessarily. I totally understand what you mean. The idea is it's still if it pulls back here and pushes up, to me that's still a signal that it's bottoming, right? It's this entry here. The first, theoretically, with scaling in, the first entry is kind of a little aggressive, and before it's when you started to see the signal, and kind of the second one is for more of when it's like really set up really well. And so for me, I want too much confirmation, and you don't want to be waiting for too much confirmation because, for me, like I think I'm missing too many spots that I should be in because I'm trying to wait for too much confirmation. And for me, that comes from the psychology side of things. Of me, my biggest psychology impact, negatively impacting emotion, is the fear of being wrong. And so to help with that psychologically, you're going to want more confirmation because it seems like, okay, that will make it more likely to work out, right? And so this is me trying to adjust to that and push through that. And because there's more spots, I'm seeing a lot of spots in the market where I can be making profitable trades, but I'm just not entering in on them. Does NinjaTrader have a good risk management to lock you out when you reach your daily target? I believe it does. Let me try and tools here. It doesn't look like it. I don't know. Honestly, you'll have to Google, to be honest. Do I ever trade the minis or micros? I pretty much always trade the minis now. The market's so big right now, I'm only trading like one or two contracts generally. But yeah, I don't. But I started trading the minis when I was trading a much smaller account. Yeah, I started trading one or two. It does it in risk management. NASDAQ is still just chugging higher. Once this kind of reaches the highs here, I'm definitely going to be, if this might just be, especially because this is kind of late in the move to enter, knowing that I'm not trying to think about the risk reward ratio too much. I'm thinking about, okay, once we come up here to these highs, I might start to close out, especially with how this market has been, especially with how trading has been. Getting a decent win, that would be a great way to go into the weekend. Just feeling good about things. Obviously, the money doesn't necessarily matter, but you got to always remember consciously it does to some extent, right? I don't want to be focused on the money, but in a week that's been frustrating, closing the week out with a small win versus letting it become a loss or just chop out. If it just kind of punches up here, unless it just stays in a crazy tight uptrend, I'll probably just close out and just call it. We'll see what this NASDAQ trend does. This is kind of crazy and unexpected. But we'll just kind of see what happens here. This is your favorite chat on the internet? Yeah, I don't know. I guess just, being calm, cool, and collected just helps. You're more likely to just build a community of calm, cool, and collected people. I know people have said that about my Discord chat for a long time. Apologies if I'm missing a lot of questions. I definitely see the chat moving pretty quick, and it's just hard for me to kind of do all that. Just how it is. Hey, someone from Twitch chat. I do mainly stream on YouTube, but I am trying to put my streams elsewhere just to, help grow it and get more people there. Yeah, psychology is just such a crazy, it's everything in trading. Like it's literally 90% of the game. And it takes a long time to change some of those things, just how you react. You can dual stream. Yeah, I dual stream on quite a few places, but the main other ones are like Kick and Twitch. I do think I want to try and focus on growing those a little bit. But right now, just YouTube's where things are doing really well, so I don't want to take the focus off of that. Unhealthy movement confirmation not checked. Yeah, sorry, I've been a little lazy on my checklist today, to be honest. I definitely did talk through it. In terms of unhealthy move, we actually do have a fair value gap on a 5-minute here. And I would say, to me, the signal of the bottom was this unhealthy move, where this just got overly aggressive to the downside and immediately reversed. To me, that is a really good bottoming signal. To me, that is things getting too overextended, buyers come in, and a lot of the times if this is going to reverse, this is the extreme low. It's not going to be broken again. If it does, that's fine. I'll get out of the trade. I'll be done. It doesn't work out, right? That's why I have my stop down here. And that's what I want to be focusing on with my entries a little bit more. To me, I feel like I've been focusing too much on where I enter in, and I've been trying to be too precise with that versus my stop, and I want to start adjusting to the idea that, okay, as soon as I see this signal and get a little bit of a bounce and confirmation, this was a little funky. I would have liked a little bit more of a pullback, but as soon as I start to see that, and this bottom is in, that's where I want to put my stop, because to me, no matter how many pullbacks in here, if this low isn't broken, I think this will eventually go up, because that's how, I'm looking at, especially on the NASDAQ, I'm looking at the big picture, right? On the big picture with these zones is, to me, this is a big support zone, and we're in an overall uptrend. To just look at the 15-minute now, to me, this is an overall uptrend, right? I think we're somewhere doing this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but my bias today was to the upside. And same on the NAT ES is like we did have a sell-off here, and then healthy pullback to continue to the upside. And so to me, that's what I want to be focusing more on. Not needing to be perfect about the entry. You don't have to be perfect about everything about the trade to have it still be profitable, right? And so to me, I want to be really focused on the stop being in a good spot, because I don't want to jump in here and have my stop here, because to me that it could stop me out and then continue higher. So that's kind of how I'm doing things. I'm trying not to be as strict about my entries. And so I scaled in half size, and then if it did do a pullback here and pushed higher, that would be potentially a spot I would scale in more. So that's kind of my thought process on that. But the NASDAQ is just slowly grinding up here. And I think once we kind of test up here on the NASDAQ, or the ES, depending on how things look, again, I think I'm going to be pretty aggressive about taking this off once we kind of start to close this trend up. And again, like I'm not super worried about this being a win or a loss. My bigger focus was getting more comfortable with that less confirmation and entering in a spot that is outside of my comfort zone. Because, I think that adjusting to that is going to be a profitable adjustment for me long term. But it's not going to necessarily make money right away, because I'm figuring it out as I go. Is the NASDAQ the same as the ES? They are very, very correlated the majority of the time. That's why on my checklist, one of the things is having the ES and the NASDAQ correlated. I like for them to be correlated. Otherwise, to me, it's not, they're less likely to move in a good way. This is a huge stop loss. It is, but again, that's how this specific trade worked out. Of course, I would love a tighter stop loss, but to me, the signal was only to start going long was kind of here. And to me, the trade isn't broken, or the trade idea isn't gone until it breaks this low. Some trades are going to have better stop losses and better risk rewards than others. But also, you don't necessarily know what the market can do. And so there's not really much for me to do right now. I think once it kind of starts to pop up here, I'll go break even. But right now, we could have a flush here and pop up. That is, to me, that is totally a reasonable move. $10:30, is that a typical reverse time? It actually has been recently. Usually I would only trade until like 10:15. But very often recently, 10:30 has actually been a spot where things have started to reverse as well. If we I'll look at this on the NASDAQ. the last couple days this week. Let's see, like a reversal trade I took earlier in the week. We had a sell-off. It literally bottomed here at 10:30. And then it took forever to get going, and then it eventually accelerated. So, there's been opening whips and a good reversal. Usually this is all I would look for. But the 10:30 timing has been pretty good recently, and that's just been kind of new. And the NASDAQ here is just in the middle of this range, looking at kind of like a 50% pullback. It's broken that. We might just flag out here a while, have a little pullback. We'll kind of see. Just kind of letting this thing play out. Am I going to add if it pulls back? I don't think so. I think it's just being late in the day, being Friday. The market is choppy today. I think if it pulls back this far, I don't, because if I add it on, I would probably be going pretty close to full size, and I don't think this is a spot. This is a spot to do that. Dog just said close out. Yeah, I think my wife just got back from a run, and she was just barking at the door real quick. I've got something in maybe 45 minutes or an hour, so I'm trying to see if I don't want to have to close this trade out because I have a prior commitment. I'll look at some questions here while I just wait things out. Friday don't add, yeah. Do I trade in the afternoon or late evening? No, I pretty much trade. Generally, if I wasn't in a trade now, I would be done. I pretty much trade until 10:30, so I trade essentially an hour. And if the move doesn't set up, I'm done for the day. Somebody needs a Scooby snack. Don't like the way it looks, rather stay out. Yeah, I mean, like, I could definitely see it slowing down and chopping around. These automatic fair value gap indicators are literally just an indicator. You should, pretty much every platform should have one for free on it. I pretty much never trade gold. The unhealthy move, there's kind of one, but it's not crazy. I did talk about it a little bit earlier. You always lose accounts when trading in the afternoon. Yeah, I think a big thing is just decision fatigue, Trading super, super long is not worth it. You just get decision fatigue. The size of my account's around like 50K. Because, I mean, you don't need much more than that for even risking full size of 1,500. I am planning to go up in like a month to 2,500 full size risk. So that's definitely going to change things. But the account size will still be able to handle that. How old am I? I am 32, believe it or not. People say I look a lot younger than that. My dad into his like 70s looks super good. So I think I just got lucky with some really good young looking genes. Just send a little flag out here. That's good to me, because to me that just looks like it's pausing, Because honestly, this is an unhealthy move. Like, this is just not sustainable, especially in this market. To me, this looks like it's just going to pull back, and it could totally pull back to here on the NASDAQ. That would be a total normal stair-step pattern. Same thing here. Again, I think if this breaks up to here, I'm going to move my stop up. And I'm probably going to, if it makes one more move like this, that's a pretty aggressive uptrend, I'm just going to look to close out up here somewhere. There's always the possibility. My chart's frozen a little bit. There's always the possibility that this just shoots higher, but I don't want that to FOMO me into staying in too long. This market is just not doing that, It's way more likely we chop here, or pop up, chop, or pop up, sell off and chop, pop up, sell off all the way. I'd rather just, especially since I'm just late to the game on this one, I'd rather just take a little bit of money and ride into the weekend happy. So we'll see. Just kind of got to patiently wait and not read into things too much. Look at the big picture I'm going off of is the 5-minute. And the 5-minute looks like it's made a pretty nice bottom. The ES to me looks like to complete this move, it would want to move up to here. The NASDAQ has already done that, but with it being more bullish, to me, it looks like it's probably going to pop up here. And to me, after that, the easy money is over. And I'm not looking to hold through a larger swing. I think last week I kind of made the mistake of that, it made a really aggressive move up, and I was looking, because last week was having very large moves, I was looking for it to pull back and continue higher. And it pulled back and then did a deep pullback, which was really hard to hold through, and then bounced a little while, looked like it was going to keep going, but then eventually turned lower, and I gave back too much of my profits. It was frustrating, and in hindsight, maybe if I only had one contract on, but in hindsight, it would have been great to scale some out there, especially if I thought, okay, I'm okay holding through a pullback to continue, but scaling out would have definitely been the move, Sorry for missing a lot of the beginner questions. A lot of them get asked a lot. And so I can't just answer them every 5 minutes. But a lot of the questions can be answered if you go to my YouTube channel, watch my YouTube videos. I talk about my strategy, talk about futures, talk about things. Yeah, that's kind of how things go. Up 60 points so far, still holding. Nice. Yeah, I guess that would be in, I would assume you're in the NASDAQ, but in the ES would be that's yeah, we haven't even moved 60 points. I think just a tiny bit more here and I'll move. We'll see what this looks like, if I'm going to move break even here or not. Kind of just, letting this thing do its thing. I do trade my own capital. Just personal preference over prop firms. I think prop firms are not good for beginners because you're just going to make a lot of mistakes. And at the end of the day, you're basically paying a premium to demo trade. The statistics of getting a payout with a prop firm are the exact same single-digit percentage numbers of you becoming profitable at trading. And so knowing that, it's better to demo trade for free for a while, find some consistency. I think go to a real money account with just as small as possible. You can start with like $300 to $500 on futures on NinjaTrader, and then slowly scale from there, figure things out, because it's just going to take, it takes time. It takes a long time. You make, in the beginning, you make a lot of mistakes, and mistakes lose you money. And to do that on a demo for free is a lot better than doing it essentially on an expensive demo, which is I view prop firms as just an expensive demo account dangling like an apple or a piece of cheese in front of you that you might unlock an account. But statistically, as a beginner, it's almost impossible. Nice spike here. Definitely getting up to here where I want to start trailing. I'm just going to move to break even now. If it pops all the way down, I don't think it's worth it holding through some kind of pullback, because at this point I'm only looking to get up here. And as the trade moves, you want to start thinking about how that adjusts your risk reward. And if up here is my target, my rough profit is theoretically capped, and so I need a trail up, right? I still want to give it wiggle room because we could do something like this. But I think once we kind of start to hit this 1x, especially if we're still in this uptrend, I'm just going to trail up pretty tight. I probably won't get out on a limit order just because it really depends how it moves. But I just like using trailing stops because I like having the ability to let it run if it just all of a sudden starts running. But it doesn't do that very often, so it's definitely a little battle. The brokerage I use is NinjaTrader. The platform I use is NinjaTrader. It's all baked into one, which I think is really nice. Will I be streaming for the rest of the year on YouTube? That's the idea. The idea is I'm doing this for the foreseeable future with no plans to change. How's my brother doing in trading? He's just chugging along. I haven't checked in a little while, to be honest. But it's a slow process, right? You're not just going to get it after a month or two. It just takes time to just be at the charts every single day. And so I don't want to be putting pressure on him to theoretically succeed making more videos. And I want to think about that side of things too. If I ask him to make more videos, that puts pressure on him to perform, which is going to damage his trading. Can I do a new video on my current NinjaTrader setup? I actually am planning to do that pretty shortly. I think it'll be out in a week or two. I'm kind of surprised at how much of a V bottom this was. This to me is pretty crazy. I mean, I did have a bullish bias today, but I didn't think it would be just bought up this fast. If I caught the first one, would I have entered in on this? If I caught the first one, I would have been out and just called it for the week. So no. Does that mean that this isn't a good trade? Not necessarily. But definitely, I would say this trade I think is not as good as the first one. But that's really hard. I think you could debate that in so many different ways. But I am happy I'm in this trade, obviously because it's working out. But the main part was because of entering in that when I see that bottoming signal, but that uncomfortability spot and not needing the entry to be perfect. Just past the evo following this setup. Nice. That's awesome to see. Can I check gold? I don't trade gold, so sorry, I won't. To me, it's like I don't look at the chart very often, and so it doesn't make sense to give an opinion on a chart I don't really trade. You know, to me, that's just, I don't know, not lying. That's too strong of a word, but you know, it's just not. I don't want to give you wrong information. Nice little spike here. Definitely. I'm looking at the NASDAQ on another chart here. Just it's spiking up into this level. And again, I don't want to get greedy here, thinking, oh well, it's spiking. What if it just continues? I do want to trail up. NASDAQ's pretty much hitting that spot here. The ES, I would definitely like it to come up a little bit more. I mean, I'm going to hold it if it holds this. But I do want to be very aware we could be topping out right now. And just take what I can get, you know? I don't want to get married to trying to hit 1x or trying to hit this area. I want to just go with what the market's going to give me. And if it's just going to give me a little move like this, I'm okay with that, you know? You know, you don't always know what the market's going to do. Sometimes it gives you an amazing move, and sometimes it doesn't. And the idea is that just over time that it works out a little bit better. In terms of a pullback here, I would be okay holding through a little bit of this. You know, I need to see it kind of break this uptrend before I really do anything. But I'm definitely gonna. I have a mental trailing stop of as soon as it spikes a little bit here and bottoms, I'll trail up. So again, sorry for missing a lot of questions. This is definitely getting in a spot where I want to pay attention. Pretty crazy move to the upside, to be honest. I don't know, my fair value gap indicator doesn't seem to be working on this chart. That's weird. There we go. Definitely more of a pullback on the ES than the NASDAQ. Again, I want to give it a little bit of a pullback here, but not much. Because the NASDAQ is definitely in a spot where I think it could top out. We could just tap this. Like, this is the pullback I'm okay holding through. Because I think risk reward wise, right, is if it pulls back here and I have my stop down here, I'm risking this much, essentially, really this much to make, I would say this. So like to me, the risk reward is still favorable. Because I see a pullback potentially happening to continue it to the upside. But I don't want to give it more than that. Because also this trend line could be right here. Like honestly adjusting it, especially if it bottoms here, the trend line could still totally be in play. NASDAQ kind of similar. NASDAQ doesn't really have a great trend line. Honestly, it's more of like just this. Because I'm not taking into account up here because I wouldn't have just got out on a limit order up here. So thinking about like my new risk reward ratio is if my stop is going to be down here, you know, what am I kind of looking for? I'm looking like 2x's up here kind of thing. So I think at this point, I'll move my stop up here for sure. If it breaks a new high here, I'll move my stop here. You know, again, just the idea of going with the swings here. NASDAQ made a little new high here. That's good to see. How do I set up the visual risk reward bars? Those are custom indicators. You can find them in the link in the description of the live stream. Same thing with like over here is technically like a hotkey enter this add-on. I'm actually in the mix of creating a checklist add-on that you'll be able to put on your charts. Hopefully I'll have that like by next week. And then, I don't know, release that at some point. but I gotta test it myself first. 100 points on the NASDAQ, nice. Yeah, the NASDAQ just, I wonder where, let's see, if I jumped in the NASDAQ instead of the ES, to me the stop was way too wide though. That's why I couldn't do it, but I jumped in at 1030. If I jumped in 1030, it would have been right here. The NASDAQ would have been already over 1x, even with that crazy wide stop. But to enter in there, that's the hard part about huge size like this with risk management. Like I would have had to be, I'm trying to just see, even that on the NASDAQ, I couldn't have done full size with one contract. It would have been $1,700 worth of risk on one contract. And that was not a spot I wanted to do that. Looks like we might be pulling back here. It's going to kind of be a bummer to just kind of get a half X. But again, it's you know what? It's not really, I'm not really worried too much about that. I want to be focused on, I entered in and changing that kind of system I have there. It's not out of the woods yet though, but it's definitely slowing down here. NASDAQ still holding this uptrend. The box for my checklist is technically a third-party application called On Top Replica. You can code the custom indicators. You can code. The checklist idea actually that I'm making now is from someone in my Discord room. So they had the idea of, I didn't know you could do that, and they just used AI to code it. And it turned out actually pretty good. I'll just show what it looks like because I actually have it on my system here. It's not set up exactly for my system yet, but it's literally just puts this little checklist on the screen, and you can click the buttons for your strategy. It's actually a pretty sick idea. And so some of the stuff you can just use AI to do. Been losing all week. This one trade covered the losses. I mean, it's been a really hard week. It's been a really hard week to trade. This move up in the NASDAQ is crazy though. An insane V bottom here. I think if we get one more punch up in the ES, I'll probably just knock out at a TP here. Because it's just starting to slow down here. It's starting to slow down at the highs. Even if it continues up, the pullback could be, it might just chop for a while. The pullback could be not ideal. I haven't moved my stop up to this low yet because I could still see it it's just in this little sideways range, right? Over here, we went in a little sideways range and even broke a low, the previous low, before actually bottoming and continuing higher. It's just flagging out right now, and so I don't want to get too scared about that. To me, it's not really showing. It's showing that it's slowing down, but it's not showing that it's topping out. And so, my stop's in a fine spot. I think the risk reward is still potentially there. Definitely slow. FOMO, I missed the trade. That's okay. It's frankly, I missed this trade over here. It's just a part of trading, you know. The big thing is you don't want to make it have you you know, do a frustrated trade afterwards, you know. How much am I risking to make this 5K trade? So the title did have 5K in it. That's just that would be if I took full size and it set up really well, to be honest. For this trade right now, it's just how the day set up. I am half size at risking $700. And honestly, I'm looking to make like 700 to 1,000. The way the market is right now, I'm not looking for a huge trade. Feels like it's topping. Yeah, it does feel like it's topping, but also like it could also just slowly chug higher and then get going again. Made a new little high here. I mean, it's holding this trend line on the ES. Journaling software. I like TradeZilla. TradeZilla. They do cost though, you know. But in terms of just how much they have on there, it's pretty cool. I would say don't read into the AI and suggestions they give you because it's not very good. You know, it'll be like, oh, you let the trade go in your favor and then it pulled back and you should have done this. And it's like, well, you don't really know what I'm trying to do. Could be pushing for a rally at all-time highs again. Yeah. But I also, like, based on the market, I just don't want to get married to it. And consciously, I am okay taking a trade off with, you know, a decent win. Just to close out the week. It would damage me more mentally going into next week if this ran up, I got married to it, and I let it just pull back or somewhere down here, you know? Um, that would be more frustrating than closing out, being happy with it, and seeing it later just rip higher. Because to me, the market's just going into the long weekend. I don't know. Is it really going to do that? But you know, I'll let it run if it's going to run, if it makes sense to stay in. You know, the Nasdaq's just kind of slowly going sideways here. It's kind of breaking this uptrend, but I mean, it's still just doing this. And again, I think if we get a pop here, we're still at this area where I could see a reversal. I would happily close because I don't want to hold through it popping, pulling back, and then being like, well, is it going to go up now or is it going to sell off? You know, to me, that's a topping signal, right? Same thing down here, right? Accelerated, got overextended. I don't want to hold through a pop in the other direction. I am live trading every single day. Monday is a holiday though, so just don't show up to the markets because they're not going to be moving. I'm at my original target of 750. Yeah. I don't want to. I definitely don't. Again, I don't want to get greedy, but also we're holding this trend line really well. If this starts to pop, honestly, if it just fills me here, I'll call it too. Because to me, popping up here and filling this, it's most likely gonna come back to the trend before it continues higher, and I don't need to hold through that. Nasdaq is kind of just is not popping here a little bit. The ES is catching up a little. And as this starts to pop, if it does, I think if it does one more candle, I'll move here. But knowing that could do kind of this. And so this is more of a mental trailing stop of just seeing what it's doing. I'm not going to hold all the way down to this. That's not happening. I'm just kind of letting it do its thing, seeing how it plays out. You know, the NASDAQ, I just have on another screen over here, trying to just watch it, see what it does. And again, it could top out right here. Just kind of trying to be patient with it. And if I didn't jump in this trade, hindsight, seeing this now, oh man, I would be very frustrated. Just knowing that I saw this bottoming pattern and got nervous about it not setting up perfectly, knowing that that's something I want to be doing. It's almost like the regret of not doing something can actually be more damaging than actually doing something, even if it loses. And so that's a hard part too, is sometimes that can hit you more. I'm not moving my stop up yet because I could totally see us pop here and pull back to this, and that could still be holding the trend. At this point, because I'm managing very tightly, I am reading into these micro moves. This is, to me, was a resistance level. It broke it. That's good to the upside. It could pull back to this and continue higher. And if it does that, I want to stay in. Because to me, that's not that big of a pullback, right? I can handle that for this trade. But if we start to pop up here, I'm definitely going to put my stop loss and I think just trail up. NASDAQ actually over here that's kind of a bearish candle. I'm going to change this to saying that we're more in something like this. To me, that's what the NASDAQ is doing. Oh my God, I need to be quick about this. As soon as I can't see oh my God, I can't draw my lines. So this looks like it could be pulling back here. But again, I want to give it that little bit of wiggle room because it technically has not broken this uptrend. I don't want to get too nervous that it's getting close to my area and trail up too quickly. Definitely looking, NASDAQ is doing a little rip down here. I'm watching the ES here. I have my stop ready to move up. I think if it does a little drop there and just rips up, that's good. But I also don't want to let it just pull back a huge amount here. If this all of a sudden just the buyers just dry up and it just starts to sell off. I'm probably going to give it to like here and then just close out. Because I want to be aware that it could just do a little spike lower and then that get gobbled up because the uptrend's just strong enough. Trying to let it go up a couple ticks before I move my stop up. It's nerve-wracking just waiting with the fear that it could just plummet and I give back my profits. I think at this point, that's enough for me. I'm going to move my stop up because that's bottoming at this area. And especially now, that looks good. To me, it's either going to go up now or this is going to roll over and I'll get out. NASDAQ has done roughly the same. And so that's kind of why I didn't move my stop up yet, because it's like, well, I could have put it here and I would have got knocked out. That's just, I don't know, that's just hard to do. And it has, it runs a risk of giving more back. But I felt because there was this little trend here, the stop was tight enough that it was okay. NASDAQ is looking pretty bearish though. This definitely does look like it could start pulling back. So I'm happy with where my stop is. If it's going to recover, that's a good spot. If it's going to sell off, I've got a great stop. It's not a huge win, but I don't want to get married to that fact. I want to focus on the fact that I'm happy with how the trade played out. I'm happy with how I did it, happy with how I entered in. This week has been a huge struggle. It's been really hard trading this week. And it's all about just slowly getting better. And I'm very happy with this trade in terms of entering because that's my focus right now. Nice little double bottom there. Wow. NASDAQ might recover too. Still in it. Did I change something from the original setup? I am just trying to get a little more, I talked about this in more depth earlier, But essentially, I'm trying to get a little more okay with it not needing to be perfect, with the setup not needing to be, not waiting for a crazy perfect confirmation, To me, I do that too much, and I'm spotting areas where the market's reversing, but I'm not getting in because just of how this market is, it's kind of crazy. And waiting for that confirmation is I'm missing trades that I think I should be in. So I'm just trying to adjust to things. Interesting enough, the ES actually made a new high, and the NASDAQ is making a lower high. Again, I'm just going to leave this limit order here. If it pops up and hits me, great. I don't want to move my stop up yet. I want to let this kind of do its little thing. If it's just going to do this. To me, this is on a micro level, this is a sick double bottom. I don't want to get married to the fact that I could leave money on the table if I just get out at a limit here. I just want to be like, hey, I'm happy with that. And call it. NASDAQ looks like it's trying to bottom as well. How do I manage the flip-flop of emotions? Honestly, it just takes time. It's hard. I mean, if you just watch my live streams enough, you'll see it too. I still do it. It just takes really a lot of practice to be able to control that stuff, to be okay with it. But sometimes it's just still happens, We're human. We have emotions. It happens. It's just a part of life, and just learning to not let them control you is the most important thing. And sometimes that means just being done trading for the day or a couple days. What age did I start trading? I started, God, I've been trading for like 9 years at this point. So I think that puts me at like 23, 24. I played poker before. I played Texas Hold'em a ton beforehand. And then I shifted over to trading. Wow, one tick away from my limit order there. Definitely because that's happening, I'm going to move my stop up here. Because I'm just leaving this limit order here. There's no point in me risking more money to just get a couple of ticks left. I'm just going to let it essentially do its thing now. I don't often have a trade this tiny. Looks like it's going to fill me though. So, and again, I'm okay getting out there. If this just shoots up, I'm okay with that. I'm happy with how that worked out. Sick way to end a very frustrating week. But again, that's just how trading is. There's ups and downs, and you just want to be focused on the process of improving over and over again. So this could totally run at the highs, but again, I'm happy with it, I will be on next Tuesday because Monday it's closed. Platform I'm using is NinjaTrader here. As always, appreciate everyone being here. It's awesome to end the week on a win. I will be back next week. Always trying to get better at trading. It's never it's a roller coaster. Yeah, that trade took a while to close out. If you guys have any questions, again, go check out my YouTube channel. I have a ton of YouTube videos on there that will explain a lot of what I'm doing here. How much did I close out for the trade? I think I just was under $1,000. $969. So just under 1,000. Again, I'm not really focused on the money. I'm happy with the trade, happy with how I traded. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. That's kind of it for the day. That's it for the week. I'm gonna go reset. And come into next week ready to go at it again. I hope you guys do the same. Go reset. I this week was frustrating. Um, even if you're up or down, frustrating, hard week. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Have a good long holiday weekend. I will see you on Tuesday.